computer.
Oh, I could have done that too. Okay.
So probably I should just repeat just for Luca's sake, maybe. Okay. So the comment I put in here was, Jennifer, I just looked into Luca and Jeff's comments above and looked deeply into Luca's gap analysis issue as to how he came into the stage and how he closed the issue and blah, blah stuff. So looking into that, I figured out that he has said that the first one would be something here. I kind of put it in here. Maybe I'm missing it out now. Summarizing the documentation or something was his first step. Then sample releases and respective reviews and pipeline artifacts and merge requests. So I kind of split it into 2 steps to make it more easier for a person to understand why we did what we are doing now. To kind of see that, first of all, is the documentation, all the documentation, the STLC process, is it being documented in the handbook appropriately? That would be the first step. So that is why I have all these links, most of it which Luca has provided here in the issue and in his gap analysis issue. So we kind of can use that to satisfy the first control, that is this, wherein we say that yes, the STLC process is appropriately documented in the handbook in GitLab and that stuff. But documentation is not enough. We need to, second step is to prove whether this documentation process, whatever is documented, is actually being followed at GitLab. So that is my step 2 here, which probably will be the work that we are supposed to be doing in this meeting today. Is that an okay approach, or if you both want to disagree, we can talk about it?
That's the same approach I took. This sounds good to me. I don't know about it.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, and is this okay? These are the things that I brought in from Luca's gap analysis and the comments above here, which kind of gives us a walkthrough of the change management process, what happens when the code is getting merged, and the other engineering workflows that takes place, and then how the security release process takes place, and all these kind of good stuff.
So the only thing I don't see there is the product side, so the ideation side, the part where they're validating. Well, it might actually be in the engineering workflow, or there's another link that was also used. It's called the product development timeline. So here, let me see. If you scroll up, I have a screenshot of it. It's in the handbook too, but that might be helpful too. So yeah, so I think what you have there is definitely the meat of the actual getting it deployed side, but before that, so the validating the idea of whatever features or bugs that we need to take care of, that part is not there.
Okay, so maybe I could do this. I would just kind of save this comment. You can go ahead and edit it and add the extra ones that you need, Jennifer. Is that okay? Because just for the sake of time, I'm not trying to just move ahead quickly, but just so that, because we want to give it in today, I'm trying to, but if we are all on the same page, you can just add in all the documentation that you think is appropriate to satisfy this step. Jennifer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I save the comment?
Yes.
But anything you want to add, please go ahead and edit it and add it.
Okay.
So step 2 would be, how are we going to prove that these documentation stuff is actually being followed in GitLab, right? So that would be step 2. For that, I think Luca has mentioned that we can see the sample releases and their respective reviews that are taking place, and the sample pipeline artifacts and merge request reviews. Nick, any idea from your side? How can we go about this?
At that second bullet point, or
this one here. These we kind of finish.
Right, right. So one question I had on the step
Sure.
1 comment,
Okay.
is that in logical order of how things would happen?
Yes.
Just curious. Oh,
It was not clear to me. I wasn't sure how this information was collected. Like, was it starting from the like when I try to go through it, it doesn't go through that flow. So I'm not sure.
No, actually, I can rearrange them.
so the reason I bring that up,
Mhm.
I wonder if we can get it in that logical flow of beginning to end,
Okay.
then we can easily just look at that and go, okay, I need evidence from this one. I need evidence from this one, and maybe for the exercise would be to just, if we can find a day that matches from the dates to sample from, we could work through and build up so that it matches all of the handbook evidence
Mm-hmm.
to the step 2, which is, okay, now we're going to demonstrate that we are doing this. And then we can build that up. And then we go, okay, I think we have it. And then there we have the template for building out the evidence for the control.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yep.
Okay.
Probably that first let's go ahead and kind of arrange it the way it has to be, right? That kind of makes complete sense. Maybe it's not like a bullet points and we'll have to put it in numbered bullets because it's actually goes by one after the other. So so this is the change management process. Change management doesn't come here, right? It has to be, where do I, first should be the planning.
Yes.
Where is the planning?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's not there. So let me see. That's product development flow. Yeah, so this is the validation track. So let me give it to you.
You want to edit it? Otherwise, Jennifer,
Yeah.
I'll close it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay, so first should be the planning phase. Then it would be create. Create, I would think of it as coding. Verify would be code review. I'm just looking at this image here. And then the package and release. So that would be the release.
I would think package and release would be where change management
comes in.
Would be one of those steps.
Yes, exactly.
And then also,
I think in verify it has to have both code review and security review, secure review, right? We have 2 links here.
well, I mean, some of those things could be happening. I wonder, the whole chicken or the egg, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
Is the validation, the code review part of change management, or does change management come after the code review?
And that's something you're pointing out that's really important. It even says it in, I have it in a red box in my notes above. It says in the product development timeline that there's no specified process whereby a particular person should be working on a set of issues at any given time, right? So, and if you keep looking through that handbook, it'll say things can pop up at certain times in their timeline. So it doesn't always start from create. It can maybe come up as a bug or something, and then it'll go straight to, verify, something like that.
I wonder if we can maybe follow a pure, something created from scratch, maybe a new feature instead of, and I know that even could have potholes in it, but do you happen to come across anything in the handbook that was more of a linear flow of what could, how things could be, instead of kind of popping in and out like everything does?
Yeah. Well, so in the basics, it talks about the workflow. So there's labels that they use for workflow. And assuming that's, that should be the case. But from what I understand with these labels, if they have the 2 colons, it deletes the last stage, right? So I don't know. And from what I see in certain issues, like I'll send you one, for example, it doesn't show that it went through any additional stages. Let me just put it in this chat here. And I think this is even a new, feature.
That's scope features, scope labels.
Yes, scope labels. So the issue I just sent you both, this is a brand new feature. And as you can see, it goes straight to DevOps release. So it doesn't so that whole DevOps label, it's if it was assigned another one before that, I don't see it. If you go down to the history, it only shows that they've only added straight to DevOps release. And then when I've searched through the other labels as the workflow, it's the same thing. So it only shows one label at a time, and it can be at any part of that timeline.
Okay. Well, from what I understand, I think instead of making it too complicated, I think probably we should just go ahead with what we consider it to be the right thing.
Okay.
So probably we'll do a review first and then probably change management. What do you think, Nick? In a normal scenario, if you look at it, so after a developer writes a code and the code review is done and the security review is done, before he pushes it into the production is when the actual change management happens, right? So that way I'm kind of trying to plug it in there, and most likely I think that's where it is, because it's kind of like the packaging, and this is CI/CD also, because this continuously it's happening, continuous implementation and continuous delivery. So it's agile, so it's not like a waterfall model where there's everything has a lag, wait, then you wait. That no, it doesn't work like that, right? Because agile is so quick. If there's a problem, they just reverse it, go back to the first stage, finish it, test it, move on. So that's how things have changed right now. So I would just go ahead with, that's why the thing that you've outlined here, Jen, that is the reason it is like that, because sometimes processes kind of tend to overlap.
Exactly.
Because everything is like so quick these days, right? We are kind of old school. We worked on a waterfall model back in the days, but now agile is like killing everyone. So it's kind of like, so we'll probably both to take this route and do it. And if there is an overlap, well, that's a possibility too, because we're not lying here, because that can happen at times when there is a customer requirement immediately, there could be an overlap.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so maybe I'm going to make a note of that. If it says that somewhere in the handbook, then it's a part of our handbook, right? So, and as long as we're reflecting that in what we're doing in real life, then
well, the minute it says that we are agile company and we follow CI/CD or something like, it's right here he says, I think this is the one here. Oh, this is just the pipeline he has given. Okay. if that's the case, then we'll have to just kind of put it in an order where the planning comes first, while maybe we both are saying you can probably edit it, Jennifer, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the planning document comes first. And then the create document. Create is kind of like dev create, right? So it could be coding.
Mm-hmm.
And then verify is code review and security review.
Okay.
And then packaging and release it has to go through change management. Or do you think the change management comes first? Nick, what do you think? So let's say a customer is asking for a change. So they kind of take that change and then start coding. Could that be a possibility too?
Well, I think you can change. I mean, I look at change management at its foundation is there a change? Are there approvals before it goes into production? That to me is change management at its simplistic. I mean, I'm sure it can get a lot more complex.
Yeah.
But you know, in my past, if I was testing it, all I literally did would go, here's a change. Were there approvals before it went to production?
Perfect.
And were those people approving it not also the ones pushing it or whatever, you know? I can't think of it all right now, but you know, at its basic, that's all I did.
No, that completely makes sense. Yeah.
But where that might happen, you know, because something could get pushed after it goes through change management, something is found, it needs to go back. So maybe it's something that can, you know, it can pop in and out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as it's needed before, you know, I think at minimum, as long as it's before production.
Okay.
That
so, probably we'll put it in here, right? After the code review and secure review, it goes into a change management.
So I'm going to make change management step 4 instead, and then step 5, packaging and release.
Okay.
yeah, because you would, yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, you know, it's kind of like you know, let's say it's a warehouse, right? Or you know, in this production, this piece of, you know, you've got the raw materials, it came in, something got made, right? It's got to go through that QC step, quality control, you know, or you know, that just, well, let's look at it from that point of view before it can go out the door and it gets put in that box to go, you know, where I see that box as being that package stage. And so you need to kind of have that, you know, you got to make sure it's, you know, taken care of before it goes out the door.
Okay.
That might be a terrible analogy, but anyway.
No, but it makes sense. Okay, I'm just moving some stuff around and I'll save the comments so you can see. I'm just trying to move the links according to where they fall on the stage.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at.
Additional information about engineering.
So you need to, after that, we need to have the package and then the release.
Yes.
And do we have something like configuration management here?
Yeah, that's there's a label they use for that specifically. I think it's enablement. So it's DevOps enablement. Perfect. Enablement is their, like to fix and fine tune, which is not in here, but it's in another page I have saved somewhere. A description.
Just kind of mark it there and put a placeholder there for now. Okay. Maybe you can add in the link if you know it.
Do you remember which side it fell on? I'll look it up.
Enablement, right?
Yeah, I think it was on the ops side. I don't know. Let me see. What's this again? Configure monitor.
So while you're doing that, maybe we can start thinking about how to prove that the planning phase, is that the first one we decided? Planning phase is kind of once something is planned, how does it move to the coding phase or the create phase? Are there appropriate approvals happening in this stage, and how it happens or something like that? What do you think, Nick? How do you
Which one again?
the first phase, the planning one?
Mm-hmm.
So do we have to, how do you prove the efficacy of this, that the planning phase, if it is moving to the create or the coding phase, before that there has to be some kind of an approval, right? Saying, okay, we agree to this plan and now we're going to start coding or something on those lines, you think?
So from what I just found, so plan and create fall in the product section vision, and then part of manage. So it's manage, plan, create. Let's see here. Not getting much out of this.
Right. Yeah. So, where you're at, Nick, I just had a feeling, okay, let me just get into GitLab and see if there's a project specific. And I did. So it doesn't say in the handbook, but Release has their own project and they have really good documentation of how they carry it through once it's in their stage. And so does the product side. So there is a whole space that they use for validating ideas, and that gets some sort of approval, and then it gets shipped to, or not shipped, but tagged for the next team to take on to actually code. But I haven't been able to find it in the handbook where it says that.
So the whole plan part of it. Okay, so here's a high level roadmap I'm looking at now. Plan stage is made up of several categories: issue tracking, Kanban, time tracking, epics. So it's literally in roadmaps, requirements management, quality management. So it's kind of the, hey, we gotta start here to document everything before we can move forward. So it is, I think showing issues related to that change or changes, that I think that would be sufficient, because then from that issue you can link, you could find your way around to whatever epic it would be part of. But I think that's all, the epic is nice and all, but it's just a collection of other things. It might help you grab all of the other related issues for said change. But I think at minimum, the plan stage would be, issues related to the change. So you can see, because we can't make any of these changes unless we track them. So that makes sense.
Okay. Do you have the link that you're looking at now?
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, put it in the chat window. Maybe I'll just paste it in here.
Let me figure out where I'm at this page.
Let me see how that comes out. Maybe.
I just added it to the Zoom chat.
Okay. Dev plan 1. Okay.
So, and then
Oh,
Oh,
have the whole
here's a
thing.
really cool visualization.
I know. This is all we need then, probably, right?
Yeah, well, when you, so the thing is, this is exactly how I was doing the
Oh
testing the
my
first
God.
time. And I think this is the way to go. So what it is we're going to have to click out into different areas. Not everything is central. You can't,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I mean? So if you see my first testing issue,
Mhm.
that's exactly what I did. And that's why it's all over the place. But then when I spoke to Jeff, he was saying, well, maybe we really need to see from the merge aspect. Once it's a merge request, we should be able to work backwards from there. And that's just not linking up because of what you're seeing here. You know, these are all in different areas.
No, I agree. But this is kind of like it's really good the way they have put in the whole stuff. I would definitely not lose this link. Where did you
Yeah.
So
even get it from,
click on
Nikki?
the next link I added up there.
Oh, sure.
So here is some really good,
Yeah.
way to visualize
Oh,
the issue workflow. I think this might be really helpful.
You know what? Probably this goes up, and this is what actually visually tells us how this is being carried out via issues, right? So this is an overall. Jennifer, is it okay if I edit this?
Yes.
This is not just planning, probably, right? The one you sent us had the entire thing. How do I go to that now? This guy. Maybe.
Yeah, that's not going to that's only going to be like the manage, plan, create.
Right.
Well,
This is part of the section, the
whole thing, right?
I'll be honest. I think if to do this like really right, I don't know if it can be done today.
Right. I spent all weekend just doing one testing date because that's exactly what I did. So if you scroll to the very first one, which is sample, let's see, it's after document review. So I have above the line testing for June 29th. That's exactly what I was following. So I opened up one issue to show that it was in the managed stage, and then I showed another issue to show it was an enablement stage. So what I was doing was picking from the sample date all the artifacts that were open, so they weren't necessarily linking all to the same, feature, but for that day, I can show all the different things that were happening and what different stages we were doing. So in that side, I think we can show, yes, we're following an SDLC in general for a lot of things at once. But if we're trying to pinpoint one feature and its life, its process, that part's a little bit harder.
So first of all, the first thing, Jen, what happened was this was just a sampling that Luca generated.
Mm-hmm.
But most of us, we kind of went in and changed, or in some of the cases, we did not, there was no possibility of checking all the boxes because it's not happening, right? I mean, and there were a lot of duplicates too.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases, I went in and changed for how I wanted it. Some of the dates I changed myself and tested it for that date and kind of put it in here. So if we go by this, then we are kind of like in a hard stop, because if nothing is happening in these dates that he has provided, then our testing is probably a fail. So that is why some of us did that. I don't know if everybody, but I put that in my testing strategy too, wherever I've changed them, sample dates, and kind of changed it to what I wanted and gave artifacts based on those dates. So just to make your life simple.
Yeah, that was the same thing I did for source code check or security code, whatever it was. Yeah, I wonder if there is a way to gather all of those dates, or or be able to export between a certain range and then see, somehow identify the dates that could have that you can sample against so that we can demonstrate, oh, we pulled these because X.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly what I did for the June 29th.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing I had written as a recommendation is we could also test from the angle of it is, whether it's in plan or product or whatever repository or project, I should say. They're using milestones, and the milestones is the version, so 12.0.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to, if you go to, let me send you this link that has all of the issues there, and then you can just sort by milestone and pick a version, and then you can see everything that's happening for that specific release. So that's my recommendation to go about testing.
Yeah, I think
the
that
sample date.
That makes a lot more sense, because then it's like, okay, well, literally here is, this is what was released.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
test. Yeah, I mean, if we had, I don't know why that wouldn't be sufficient. I could.
My error. I should have spoke up and just said that, but I was trying really hard to go about it in this methodology with the random dates, and of course that's not making sense. So sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, I think, and then I think in addition to that, to just, placate everyone, that would probably bring it up would be, somehow to demonstrate that there isn't anything outside of that, of those releases, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if there's merge requests that don't have a milestone or a label associated with it.
Yes. Yeah, I think that would be a good way to cover the bases.
Yeah. So if you
Jennifer, you sent just now?
So
Jesus, right?
So this is okay. If you take off the label filter, it should, there is no filter. Okay, so if you can add a filter here for milestone. Oh, there it is. Okay, so if you delete that label that says release, there goes every issue that is associated with the 12.0 release. And then from here you can, right now it's drilled down to only the release label, but if you delete that label, you'll see there's a lot more, like you'll see, everything from create, everything. There's issues all over the place. Now, the one thing though, if you do, and then hit enter, there are some MRs here that went through without labels. So so like the first one, there's a DevOps verify, and then the second one, DevOps plan. So there's stuff here, but then if you keep scrolling, there are things that went through that don't have a label. So, but then they have the milestone for 12.0. So it's kind of hard to understand.
Have you asked anyone, like on one of those given MRs of, hey, I see this as part of this milestone, yet it didn't make it all the way? And I've seen where, where I've, like customers where something has gotten updated and it's got moved to a different milestone, or it's like, hey, we're not going to make this one, so I'm just curious of what the response would be, because then we can use that as input into explaining.
Yeah.
If you see here, Nick, they
Mm-hmm.
said, for example, now, like Jennifer says, this doesn't have a label, right?
Right.
But that's why it says unscheduled, because probably there was a customer request or they were hitting the milestone and they had to immediately finish it. So that's the reason you see here, work that needs to be completed in a milestone, which was not previously scheduled. So those are kind of scenarios where things probably, they don't have a label, but it was being done because there was an urgency.
Yeah, and I think all of that will have to be accounted for.
Because everything here, it's a monthly release, so that's fine. Here it's like, otherwise I'm seeing most of it does have, here it doesn't have, what was this, investigation.
Well, and then there's another label, group distribution. And I briefly saw there was another page in the handbook that said there are groups that kind of correlate with the SDLC, but it's not part of the SDLC, but they do something that has to do with the SDLC. So maybe that's something I can note. If that label is corresponding with something SDLC, then we should have some sort of connection there.
Yeah, if you see here, it's actually, it belongs to the configure stage of the DevOps lifecycle.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. That is
So I just did a search in the handbook for the unscheduled label, and I found label definitions for a few things.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw the link in there if you want to open that up.
Sure.
So yeah, there's a few different things there that might be beneficial to help explain some of those.
The one-offs, yeah, the ones that don't have the expected labels. Cool.
Now I'm going to go 99% repeating that. That's probably not catching everything, but it should hopefully catch a good swath of it.
So here's the other thing I want to bring up too. So this is great, like as far as this part of it, right? Where we can show it's gone through a lot of that process. So there's another part though. So the MRs, right? The MR, not all the MRs are in this project space because of the code base change. So the MRs are, all the past MRs are in the FOSS project. So that's why in my testing, I did testing here on GitLab.org, and then I would pull for the MRs on FOSS because it was past dates. But after, you know, any date after any release after the you know, when we combine the code base, we'll be fine. We could use just this one single GitLab.org space.
When do we do you know off the top of your head when that happened? I know it was recent.
Yeah, I have it noted. Let me see in this. I have it in the issue. Let me find it. I have so much writing here now that I even get lost. Let's see. That was August 23rd is when we wrote a blog about it. So around September, I want to say. I don't have the exact date, but I'll have to find it and add that in there for sure.
I wonder if we could just get away with testing from then on. It would make things a lot easier.
For sure. Yeah, because what I was finding is when I would find an MR in FOSS, I'd have to find the corresponding issue in GitLab.org because they moved all the issues but left the MRs. So.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's been kind of a nightmare. I really appreciate your guys' help because I'm like, it doesn't feel very straightforward, but it's okay if it's not. If it's supposed to be, I just want to make sure that I wasn't just completely making this wrong.
No, it's definitely, you know, fluid in a way where like things can like do this as other things are like going this way.
Yeah. And
it's really weird. I get it. I mean, it's just how things are. It's just demonstrating that for testing evidence is wow.
So for this, the sample release, the issues related to the 12.0 release that anyways we opened it, Jen. So that's why I thought of putting that in. So from there, and these are the one-off situations. So maybe this can go up.
Perfect. So for I think then for this, if I can complete this testing issue just based off of the milestone for the release and then just note any variations, forget about the sample dates and then just call it done, or should I do more than one release?
Well, if you want to, you can do more than one release. So because I don't know the date behind this. What is the date? Did I close it? Okay, it's here. So
yeah, 12.0 release came out for July, I think July 22nd.
So with these kind of things, actually you can checkbox most of the things because you see there's a thing happening, there's a change happening every day, almost 2 days ago, 6 days ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So most of your dates, the random dates will apply to this.
Well, that but that was after the release. So, but okay, it doesn't matter though if it's continuous, because so the 12.0 release was in July, and we're still doing things today. Like things still come up today. So,
I would think we'd need to correlate the code at the time of that issue.
Mm-hmm.
The code the code at the time of the release, or in the process for the release, correlating it to the issue, the point in the issue, you know, that it was being worked on, you know, so that way, regardless of the fact that, you know, those issues are still kind of in play, you know, you can go back, because most likely I wonder if maybe they're like a sub issue of that issue. I could be wrong. You know, it's like there's, you know, all those issues seem to have like a bunch of tasks that, you know, that task in that description could have been a sub issue. I don't know. It's a possibility, but that's the only way I can think of where these issues are still being modified. I don't know why they wouldn't just, you know, I mean, I get it. You don't want to have like so many issues to manage that you just keep utilizing the same thing.
So
yeah, I think it's just going to come down to what you know, if that rings true, or if that really won't work.
You're saying this was released in July of 2019. Is that correct, Jen?
Let me just double check. So 12.0 was actually June 22nd. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, because we release every month on the 22nd.
So that way, here, if you have a June 22nd, you can immediately checkbox that, which apparently you have.
Well, the June 29th, because I found that we did activity June 29th in preparation for 12.1 release was for the July. So that's the other thing. The testing, the sample dates is going to determine which release we should be looking at. So June 29th is in preparation for the July.
No, I think somewhere here, you see here, Jen, he's clearly saying if the dates don't make sense for the kind of testing and the given control, then make adjustments appropriate for the control. That's what he's saying.
Right.
So you know, these were just randomly generated. So go ahead, do the change.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can literally, we could go in and pick any release, because I threw the releases link in there, and looking at this page, you know, like every month on the 22nd, you get the dot release, right?
Yep.
The number dot, or is it .1, I think?
Yeah, .1, .2.
Yeah, or dot, yeah.
Oh no, it kind of jumps around. It's 12.1, 2.
Well, no, yeah, it goes, but it's always in the 22nd is the release. And then after that, usually like the next day or within a day or two, you're going to get the patch release. And then randomly throughout the month, you're going to get the critical security releases. But, you know, yeah, just looking at this page, you know, always the you know, version release is always on, new version is always on the 22nd. Patches and security are sprinkled throughout the month.
Okay, so that's why we see work done after the release for the same release, because it's
I bet you can correlate that to a patch or a security, possibly.
Gotcha.
Because like yesterday, you know, Coastal posted the security releases.
How can you tell it's a security release? What is it that you're looking at, by the way?
He goes
to the 11.0 just to see. So even 11.0 is still being worked on. So if there is any,
if you,
right? So
I added the releases link in the chat window.
Sorry, I thought it was your
Oh.
you were sharing. My bad.
Oh, sorry. So as you can see there, that very first one, which was released yesterday, for various versions, those were updates for security.
Okay.
And then if you go back, like, security ones all have the same logo. The patch has the same logo, but the releases have specific pictures. That's very important to testing.
It might be. It actually might be.
It could be. But I think that might also help to correlate all of the different work being done on things after the fact, after a milestone release.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think of that. So that's great. Thank you, Nick. I did see that, and the 12.1.1 is a certain type of, and in my head I wasn't ready to deal with that. So I was still trying to handle what, everything else was, but that makes a lot of sense to complete the story. So any ... after that should have a corresponding patch or security release. Cool. And then we could point the auditor. I really think then is the starting point for the auditor. Okay, one side, here's our documentation, and we have to get clear on what pieces of documentation are actually relevant, because I think there's just so much, since the product is SDLC. There's customer facing stuff, but then there's things that are specific to what we do internally. So I think us narrowing down that list of what we do internally versus the product, marketing stuff, and then giving them the release schedule, and then they can pick a release, and then from there work through the milestones.
Yeah, so that's what we have to do now, looking at the pipeline artifacts and the merge request reviews. Okay. So,
another way to look at it, and going back to the infinity loop, is you can tell them, here, start with a release, right? And now you got to go through, and you could start with 12.1, right? And go through, find all that stuff. Well, when you get done, what are you going to be up to next? 12.1.1, because you got to patch something. Then they can go right back through.
That'd be good.
It's going to continually feed into the next one, because that's just the way it works, and that's the way it is drawn out, and that makes sense to me now. But trying to find that point in time, I would think, for a release, it's like, okay, let's start at the beginning for the release, work up to the being a release, and then that could feed into, okay, well, you want to know how it got patched for later on, sub versions? Great, there you go. Yeah, I think we should just start with the beginning of the manage, plan, create, up into the release. And then maybe you could, just demonstrate those sub releases of, hey, how these things got fixed, to reinforce the whole testing process, or the whole process.
I think that's completely captured here itself, Nick, if you actually think of it. If you 12.0 is the main heading, or whatever they call it as the main label. But if you go into it, the work that has been done, most of the work here is for all these sub releases. Oh, I think I closed it, sorry. Based off of the sub release was why the work kept going on and on. See, otherwise, like Jen mentioned, it all, the 12.0, the main one got released in June 22nd itself. These are the updates or the patches that kept on happening. It could be security patches, it could be code patches, it could be both, right?
Yeah.
So that is the thing we are showing here, telling that there is a continuous improvement happening to prove our CI/CD process. So once a release happens, we are again continuously improving the product and to prove that we are doing that are all these issues here. if we can explain that way to the auditor. I'm just putting in the links here. If you want to just put some 2 or 3 lines explaining what these links are, Jen,
Sure, I'll do that.
go and
Definitely.
just
Perfect.
edit this thing. And I just didn't want to lose all the things that Nick is posting in the group chat, so I put it in the comment quickly. But if you want to explain why we have put these links, what are we trying to explain with regards to this, that is what we're explaining. Because
Perfect.
we are basically trying to say that we are a CI/CD company and we are focused on that customer first, and we are doing everything that takes to give them the good customer experience.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do. If we want to give some pipeline artifacts or merge requests, we can again take an example of probably the 12 release and go with the pipelines and merge request based off of that. Nick, what do you think? Because we'll just take one release as an example, right? Because otherwise, this will be like having 100 links here. So we want to kind of concise our testing and say that as an example, we are going to be proving to you how the release 12 works. So this is the release 12.
Mm-hmm.
These are the issues attached to it. This is the release page in our GitLab page. This is how the customers have used it or whatever that is. And these are the actual artifacts of the pipelines and the merge requests which were attached to this particular release. What do you think?
Yeah, and then I think if it's possible to and I'm not saying use the infinity loop diagram, but somehow
was it here?
You know, the plan, create,
Yep.
package, all of that, somehow tie different things into that to demonstrate the whole model, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we have to explain the complete, not just the release, right? We have to explain this whole thing. That is the whole purpose of this.
I mean, I also wonder if maybe a complete month release, like just go with 12, right?
Okay.
And just do it from beginning to 13, or 13.
All the way you get to 13 or 13 backwards.
Right up to 13, to demonstrate that
how the process was followed.
You can account for all of those the release and and patching and security releases, that then feeds right into 13, right up until, okay, well, do you want to do 13?
Do you want to do it that way, or do it from 11 to 12? Because that's something which is already released, right? So she can go back in time.
I'll do 11 to 12. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that is finitely done.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So what you're saying is pretty much what I suggested as the alternate route to test. So I'm going to go with that. I think that's the best way. As far as there's another piece. So if you're looking at this infinity cycle here, there's these stages on top. There's manage, right? And then secure and defend. And those things don't really fall in the cycle, but they just happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So with that, I'll have to find, because I think those have a different label, or they're just in a different project. So I'm seeing it as one test would be, or one part of it is pull everything that fits in with the loop, right? And then the next would be, how do we hit manage, secure, and defend? Because they can, manage always happens first, but the secure and defend can happen as they're having to do another patch, right?
No.
But would those be like supplemental things to actually achieve the DevOps pipeline?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
All that it's saying is Jen, that the whole cycle is managed, as in everything goes through a process, and everything is managed and monitored, and kind of that is what it's trying to say. And here in the first stage, the secure review. So that is what secure stands for. It may not be in your infinity loop, but it has to go through a secure review from a security point of view.
Yeah.
And here, once it is released, we are kind of in the defend mode, wherein, we are continuously monitoring. That is defense. We're continuously monitoring that everything is working fine or not. If something is not working fine, it comes back to here. So you don't have to really that's not out of the loop. It is part of it itself, but it's just a kind of an overarching way of looking at it.
Got it.
That
So I'll just
I think some of that stuff will help enhance and the evidence and build it up more, but I don't think they are things you have to address individually.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, I don't always see that, defend has happened, or because it also says manage, secure, and defend are stages, they're value stages. And so manage, there is a project section called manage, but there's not one for secure and defend. So it's hard to know like if that's an actual process, but you're saying that it's included, but I guess I just need to figure out how it's included.
So think about it this way. So the secure phase, the secure portion, as part of verify, something is going to go through the AutoDeps pipeline, or it's going to use SAST and dependency scanning to validate verify that there are no vulnerabilities.
Okay, got it.
In the code.
Perfect.
And so that's all part of, you got to plan, that's why it's moving security to the right or to the left. And then defend is, just making sure that, it is going to not be broken or hacked into.
Okay.
So that's why you have the security releases and the patches, because something was found that could be manipulated.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Mostly here, the secure review comes into play and defend comes into wherein we're checking the production environment continuously.
Yeah, monitoring and stuff.
Monitoring and testing for vulnerabilities that might affect our system and immediately applying patches.
Cool.
That's all these are. Management, the overall, like I said, every stage goes through an approval process, management. So it's just management of the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's all there is to it. So all you might have to really focus on when it comes to SDLC is the plan, create this loop. If like we did in this first comment here, you did, Jen. Mm-hmm. Now, if we start proving that these things are followed, I think we should be done with this.
Great. Okay, so I'll get back on it. I'm gonna do. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm not really gonna sample 15 releases, right? I mean, it's a lot of. So what do you think is sufficient? Just one release? Okay.
Yeah, 11 to 12. I mean, that's all we also did, Jen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like, for example, a customer review or whatever that I had, third-party management. We have like 800 probably. Doesn't mean, I just took one example of one customer third-party review that we did and took screenshots of that. That's it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, so we don't actually need 15. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just take one release that you're comfortable with, maybe 11 to 12, because it's already done. So it's always easier to go back to the past and get the artifacts. So maybe if you want 11 to 12, and then kind of look into the same issues, pipeline, get some pipelines from it, how it worked through it, and then couple or 3 or 4 merge requests.
So now for the documentation side, should I be working backwards to find what documentation points me to this? Because as you see, there's a lot of links. And so it's hard to know what is the most valuable thing to give the auditor. I mean, a lot of it is important to understand. It's a lot of good context, but the actual, starting point, something they can do, they can start with.
No, the documentation we are done. Jen.
Okay, so what the
one that we have here?
Oh, just this. Okay, all right.
That's pretty much it. There obviously there will be documentation like every day. People are writing the handbook like every day. We cannot kind of keep track of it because we can revisit this issue. It's not like it's done or set in stone. We can revisit it maybe, I think like Melissa was saying, another 3 months or 5 months or whatever, and kind of add more to it if required. But for now, I would think that the amount that we have provided is good enough for the auditor to just go on with it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And this has most of the information that any auditor would look for. So we have covered it. We are not going to again backtrack it and, you know, break our head with it. We're done.
Okay.
We are only going to focus on step 2. That is just kind of going through release 11 to 12. Did GitLab kind of follow the proper STLC cycle? And how do we prove that it followed it? That is through this process of going and seeing all these issues and these merge requests and proving that, yes, it went through a plan phase. And after that, it went to create. That is a code review phase, coding phase. And then it went to a code review phase. Something kind of by the dates or by the approvals. You can just take a screenshot or just paste those issues here saying, this is the issue that where people planned it and pushed it into the coding phase. Another issue saying, yeah, this is where it got coded. So the third issue saying, this is where the code review and secure review was done. Perfect. And then the fourth stage, this is where it was packaged and released. And then this is where the configuration happened, or because based on the labels I'm saying. And this is where, you know, like Nick just mentioned, this is where it's getting monitored, as in the vulnerability or whatever is being checked and stuff like that. So if you kind of give this flow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the attached issues based off of that, I think we're done.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
Nick, anything you want to add, Nick?
No, I think this will show the overall, you know, process, because that's what it's designed to do. But, you know, there's other things, you know, where, for example, like the code security check control, you know, it was defined, you know, that there were certain repositories that go into production that don't have that turned on, right? You know, so, you know, I think this is just capturing all of the, you know, all the little sub parts of the other controls and showing that, you know, it's just a beast of evidence to to show. But I think if we kind of stick to how, you know, how it's laid out, and then just, you know, for a release, go through and show evidence of these things, because it's almost like it's kind of, you know, it's a tree, you know, it's like all the leaves are, you know, the code changes and everything, and it's going to keep filtering down into the trunk.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it gets spit out into, or the other way around, you know, we're the root system. And then it gets spit out into all of everyone using it, and to on-prem and all that. You know, that's just the hard part is, you know, it's the beginning stages. I think as you go along into the later stages up into the release and on, it's much easier to demonstrate because it's a release. It's not, you know, all the millions of things that make up the release.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you comfortable now, Jen?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is it's good. It validated the way I wanted to go about it the first time, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't leaving out other stuff just because there was so much stuff in the handbook. But you're right. I mean, this is really all we have to show. So I'm gonna go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think this will be a recording we should keep for newer people.
Yep.
Because they're gonna need it.
Yes, you're welcome. My pain for you. All right. Well, thank you both.
Cool.
I've got some work to do. So.
Okay, sure. Anything so you get stuck or something, just ping us, Jen.
Okay, will do.
Sure, no problem.
Bye.
Bye.